Andrew Donaldson, political strategist and commentator for Young Voices, is with me. Mr. Donaldson, first of all, thanks for carving out some time. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be back with you.
All right. Tell folks what Young Voices is all about.
Well, it's an interesting group, but it's mostly just really good people. They take younger folks, usually folks coming out of college or shortly thereafter, that are kind of starting out their lives, but they want to be involved in politics. They want to get into things like commentary, like writing, like doing TV hits, like doing radio hits, all those things. That's kind of a dirty business. You've been in a long time. There's a lot of good folks, but there's a lot of questionable characters as well.
Oh, yeah.
This is a nonprofit that takes people that are liberty and freedom minding, mostly right wing, but they take a little bit of for anybody, and they kind of give them a jump start without them having to pay out of pocket for any of it. They apply for it. There's a vetting process. We had over 100 people apply for this newest term that's coming up, and basically acts like a PR agency, but also a lot of mentoring, and that's where I've really enjoyed my time there for the last few years, mentoring these folks, kind of giving them a head start, showing them the right. We've seen what bad media and bad commentators can do over and over and over again. This is a group of really superb young people that are very smart, very well educated, really care, and kind of giving them a step or two in the right direction to really jumpstart their careers. Because listen, complaining about the media is all well and good. You really want to do something about it, change it, and that's what these folks are doing, and I'm happy to be associated with them. Get the good people in the right spots to change the future.
Yeah, that's what it takes to affect change. This business is so much different. I did a television and radio talk show both at the same time for years and years and years, been doing it for decades, and I got to tell you, the toughest thing I've ever done, and then we'll get into why we brought you on. At the Heritage Foundation, I was coaching former congressmen and former senators on how to do talk radio. And yeah. I've said it before, it's like getting a root canal with no anesthesia. It's impossible. Certain things are ingrained. They're used to reading off 3x5 cards that some intern labored over all night long. And so to try and get them to be conversational is almost an impossibility. And there are certain tricks to the trade when you run up against somebody that's dead set against every point of view you have. How do you get back on a level playing field? Well, it depends on how you frame a question and how you all this, but that's good. I'm glad that there's an organization out there like that.
Yeah, I am too. And I came to it late. I was already in my late 30s when I first started writing and first got into doing radio and then later television and doing my own shows. I can't imagine having to do this in my late teens and early 20s. That guy was such a train wreck. I don't think he would have lasted very long. I'm glad I got some maturity and life kicked me around a little bit, and I got to do this later in life when I kind of halfway know what I'm doing, I hope. So, yeah, it's remarkable. Look, the kids are okay. The next generation, there's some good folks there. We need to make sure we support them and lift them up as they start out, because they're going to be okay if we just give them the right paths to do it.
Yeah, and the business is so much different now than it was even 5-10 years ago. But all right, enough of that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I would think, whether Democrat or Republican or apolitical, I would think anybody that is being accused of what Joe Biden's being accused of, I would think that question from a legitimate news source, I would think that warrants an answer, does it not?
Go to the tail of the tape. We have 50 years of book on Joseph Biden, right? He's been in the public eye for a long, long time, since the early 70s. He has two public modes. Let's set everything aside for just a second. This is how Joe Biden is. He has two public modes. He has the aw shucks, Uncle Joe, joke around, what you saw with this, laugh things off, that sort of thing. And then his other mode is a really surly F-you kind of guy who just doesn't want to deal with anything. Those are his two modes. Usually the second one comes after the first one does not work. So this is part and parcel to how Joe Biden is. He laughs things off. He's been there a long time. He's kind of been Teflon. He's had plenty of controversy. Remember, he won on his third shot at the presidency, right, and that was after plagiarism scandals and other scandal. Like, he's not been scandal-free through his lifetime. Let's all be adults here. He's kind of been a little Teflon on this stuff, so you put those two things together. This is how he always does. That's probably, if you held a gun to my hand, that's how I would bet he would have reacted to this kind of story. Laugh it off, joke it off, don't take it seriously, walk off, and hope they don't ask me again, because the press hasn't been super pressing with the Joe Biden White House on a lot of issues, especially the mainstream press.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They've been extremely soft. This first part of his term. It remains to be seen as we, ramp up for another presidential election, whether, he continues getting softballs. I think the funniest thing I've heard all week was Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, and her excuse for not carrying former President Trump's remarks live. It could come at too great a cost to the network. We value truth too much to do that. And I thought to myself, Rachel, I don't think you got to worry about that. I don't think that's anything in your wheelhouse that you need to be concerned with. It was was ridiculous. It was absolutely a farce. We carried it live so people could hear what he had to say. We're not the arbiters of truth here. We expect people to do some research and, we try to lead people in the right direction, but no, I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody what to think.
Yeah, it's funny, too. We started this talking about the business of news media and commentary and politics. There has never been anything as good for the news media business as Donald J. Trump for the last 7 years, give or take, when he started running. It's been the biggest boon to the business ever. So there's bias involved in that stuff, too, but part of the reason they don't cover Biden quite as much is they're still wanting to cover Trump because Trump's still really good for business. They want to cover him. They actually would get a ratings bump. We're talking about her saying we're not going to cover Trump. That's how much people want Trump covered is now you can get coverage just whether you cover the guy or not. Just think about that for a minute, how ridiculous a place you're in where not covering becomes as big a story as covering him. That tells you how the entire news media business, especially the political side, has revolved around the Donald J. Trump for and against business model for so long. So, yeah, there's bias involved. There's people involved in all that. But a lot of this is it's just business. And that's what you're seeing here. Some of it is not covering Biden stuff. It's just Trump's better for business. He's more interesting. By the way, there's the old saying on Capitol Hill. My friends up there that cover Congress tell me all the time. You got to feed the crocodiles. You got to talk to the press whether you like them or not. You got to give them something, or they'll go make it up. Trump always gives them something. Biden tends to bunker in a little bit too much, and even our Democratic and progressive friends and media friends have said, look, they're not giving us anything, that's the only thing, they're not talking to us. What are we supposed to say? So Biden brings some of that on himself too, but Trump always gives them good copy, the old folks would have called it, right?
Yeah, well, I've had the opportunity to interview Trump on several occasions. And, I don't care what subject you're talking about, whether it's in the news or out of the news or dated or what have you. The guy's got an opinion. I mean, he's got something to say. I asked him one time, I said, when you get out of bed, you got to feel a little bit like Benjamin Netanyahu. You're fighting in every direction. Before your feet even hit the floor in the morning, you're fighting someone in every direction. And we went through a list of accomplishments, and I said, do you ever wonder what you could have accomplished had you not received pushback to the degree you did? And he started laughing, and he goes, you sound like me when I'm in a mood. And it was just a one-liner, but the guy says so much. Whether you like him or don't like him, or his tie's too long, or you don't like his 2 a.m. tweets, you can't argue with what he was able to accomplish.
Well, he's a very reactionary person. And remember, they started out before he even got in office being remember all the resistance stuff? We're all going to have this Star Wars fantasy, right? We're the resistance. We're going to fight Trump. But Trump was if you look at his political leanings before 2015, he was pretty amicable on a lot of stuff. If they hadn't started out so strong against him, he literally said on national TV, you can go pull it up on you, I will sign anything you put on my desk. He's a deal maker by now. A lot of his more dyed-in stuff where it really got ugly was reactionary to people attacking him. And I'm not even defending him because he goes too far on stuff, too. It's just the way the guy's built. Again, like Biden, we've got 40, 50 years of book on Trump. He's reactionary, and a lot of it was reacting to how they treated him before he even got in office. If they would have worked with him a little bit, he probably would have gave him a lot of stuff that they actually liked too, but that's, not how it went, and here we all are.
Yeah, exactly. Andrew Donaldson, political strategist and commentator for Young Voices. I got to step aside very briefly, and when we get back, we're not going to have a whole lot of time, but I'd like to get your overview of the recent indictment and arraignment of former President Trump, if you would, when we get back on News Talk 820 WBAP. Talking with Andrew Donaldson, political strategist and commentator for Young Voices. And thanks for sticking around. We got about 2 minutes left, but your overview, your observations, given what you do and who you do it with, I think it's important. What do you make of the arraignment, the indictment, all of this in comparison to Hillary? And I mean, everybody's got dirty hands here.
Yeah. All the different processes of the system. Convicting somebody is a 1 through 100 step process. What we're dealing with the Joe Biden tape allegations, that's step 2 or 3 because it's coming off the 1023 form, which is just, right. Hey, this asset we had, say this. So they're on one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum, you have Donald Trump, who's been indicted. He's on step about 85, going to be going through the legal process to what he's doing. So you still have to parse it out. But look, I'm for getting rid of government corruption wherever we find it. We need to find it where it's at, and then we need to understand how the system works, which part of the problem here is former President Trump not listening to his own attorneys and making the situation worse for him than he needed to make it. Biden seems to be a little bit better about keeping him, and nobody was better at this than the Clintons, just frankly. I didn't interview yesterday. Somebody asked me, he's like, why does Trump get in trouble and the Clintons don't? It's like the Clintons were a lot better at it. I remember that, like 98, the midterms was my first election. I remember it well. They're a lot better at it than Donald Trump is, just to be honest with it. So we have to parse these things out. We got to get to the truth as best we understand it, and absolutely investigate everybody. I'm all for it.
Andrew Donaldson, if somebody wants more information about Young Voices, can you direct them to a website? What do they do?
Yeah, young-voices.com. They are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for letting me talk about them for a minute, because it's really been a joy. We got to do a lot of things we don't like to do in this business. Mentoring those folks is something I really like to do, so I appreciate you doing that. So youngvoices.com, look them up. You can find me online, Twitter, for the Fire. I also write at ordinary-times.com myself. You can find me published all over the place. And I really appreciate the time with you. Always enjoy talking to you, my friend.
Hey, Andrew, anytime. Andrew Donaldson with Young Voices. When we come back,